get to those in the back half. But I'm excited today to be joined by Blake Cohlan. So it's interesting because I've met Blake through a variety of like back channels, which is I think how a lot of expertise and insights are coming with AI and go to market. And so I think Blake, you were at a conference and Maria, one of the Scale EIRs, saw you speak. Then Maria connected you to me. Then I went gaga. We wrote a use case for what you're working on. And then I was like, you should come and share it. But there's been so many iterations that I think, that things are always changing, and it's just great to keep up to date with what you're working on. So excited to have you here and share with the team what you're working on. So take it away.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. And just a heads up, I actually moved on from Support Logic about a month and a half ago. So I did get permission from Support Logic to share this, talk about the advancements that we made there, because I think it's just such an interesting use case and how we're evolving to AI and how we're starting to experiment and be able to have some really tangible results. Yeah, so Blake Cohlan, background in marketing ops. I was one of the first consultants on Eloqua, if that puts it in perspective. About 16, 17 years ago, working for Demand Gen International, who helped kind of create the space for lead scoring, routing, all the different marketing operation processes that we're still continuing to this day, but maybe even sunsetting and making better. Yeah, so I gave this presentation with Zapier at an AI conference a few months ago and got some really good reviews in terms of it being helpful. And so again, it's meant to be interrupted. Happy to drive questions as they come up, but the main idea is how we were starting to look at account research from a no-code perspective and leveraging LLMs to be able to help drive that, as well as add it to workflows to be able to scale it. So let me
Awesome.
switch.
This is totally unrelated, but I just have to interrupt you for a hot second because I worked with Elico back in the day as a consultant, and it's just so
Yeah,
funny, like to look at the evolution and the race that was happening in Martech right around that time of Eloqua and Marketo, and now here we are at another evolution. It's just, I don't know, it just makes me feel old, but it's also really fun. So
yeah. I still
another fun thing in common.
we talked about like being on a beach and pressing a button in terms of market automation.
Yes.
Still not there yet. Yeah.
Still not there yet, but everybody's trying to do it now with AI, which is just great. It's the next iteration. I've met more people
100%.
lately talking about that thing we built before that could never fully deliver on the promise. I'm trying to do it again now with AI, and we're getting closer to the promise. So, hey,
Yeah. Yeah. Same excitement.
yep.
Cool. So high level, I feel that count research is foundational cross-functionally. But individual research just didn't scale for us. I'll go through some of the challenges that we faced and how we addressed it with AI. But the key takeaway for today's talk is um, highlighting that the automation research that used to take hours is no longer needed. How we moved off from one-off prompts to scalable systems, and then how we're building powerful workflows. And you don't need to be a coder. You don't need to be able to really be able to tinker with that. Vibe coding is definitely real, and I experienced it. So big challenge, quick story. So I created this matrix to help us in this account planning template for our prospects to kind of standardize some of the research. AEs were doing research differently, SDRs were doing research differently, worked cross-functionally with all of the different departments in terms of marketing, sales, and product to try to really drive a framework that we can all use to be able to standardize and what are the key criteria for us to start thinking about it. At Support Logic, we had a couple tiers of ABM, and we had about 100 accounts that we were really saying these are in market, these are lookalikes, these are, we could definitely do business with these, and let's go do it. So created a bi-weekly pipeline and ABM sync with the AEs and SDRs and gave the first assignment of, hey, can you fill this out for 5 accounts in your top 25? And what can we do on the marketing side to support it? What can we do on the product side to support it? How can we get this in and win? 2 weeks went by and got on the call, and out of the five AEs, one AE did it not for five accounts, for one account, and it was partially filled out. And
Now,
that's
why do you think that was? Was that they didn't have all the information, or it's just like this is work they didn't want to do?
I think it's a combination. One, you know, they're trying to close deals, they're trying to get revenue into the business.
Hmm.
Two, the availability of the information is across multiple different sources, and it can be nuanced, right? And the other component is we all read and think a little differently and approach accounts in a different manner. And that was kind of the genesis of how can we standardize this to say, hey, let's give a great baseline, and then you can make tweaks and personalizations and leverage your own selling style on top of that. So, and
Yeah.
then also too, just reduce some of the manual lift in terms of that research.
For sure, because I think like account planning has been an age-old problem, and when folks take time to stop and pause and do it, good things happen. But it is how do you scale it? Totally is the issue, and I think we're seeing in our go-to-market AI research that the biggest uplift of AI is to increase a seller's selling time. But then the question is what are they going to be doing with that selling time? The idea is not more of the same necessarily. It's that creates the space for us to do the right things that we never had time to fully do before. And I think this plays into that really well.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So let's show you what I built. So as you can see, this is our Salesforce instance, screenshots, no confidential information. I used to work for Adaptive Insights, which was bought by Workday, so this one's near and dear to my heart. And so you could see, on the left side, we were starting to build out our ABX processes, defining different stages in terms of where they are, if they were known, unknown, if they were engaged. And then also too, in terms of how we started to build out the account, you can see that we had some coverage, right? But the missing thing was connecting the dots to be able to really drive business forward. And so when an account rep or anyone inside Salesforce wants to run an analysis, just go up right here, click the button for run company analysis. And so I designed this specifically to help address the throughput of data and to not overwhelm and not set automation in play to refresh concurrently. Once an account is created, they can kind of see when it was last run. And then if there is some time that passed, they can run it again. As we know, speed of information constantly changes, but sometimes looking at the 10K across the quarter, it's not going to change until the next 10K, right? So give a baseline, save some costs, and drive some efficiency there.
So just to clarify, you created that run company analysis button in the upper, that's sort of the custom action.
That
Mhm.
that's the magic that kicks off the workflow.
Perfect.
And so this is the output. And before your eyes glaze over, it's meant to be comprehensive because I'll show you how we were starting to experiment with it. But there is definitely ways that the sellers were able to kind of take this, ingest it, make it simpler. But we really wanted to go in depth to try to get as much information as we could. So as you could see,
Oh.
talk about the high level business model in terms of what Workday does, give some demographics, firmographics to understand, make sure that this isn't a target account and all that stuff. Looking at their products to kind of understand, what they're doing, what they're selling, to look for adjacencies. This one's cool, looking at the leadership priorities and calling out the specific leaders. One of the things that we were really focused on was multi-threading in the organization. So this provides it. So not only looking at the personas, which we defined, but also who's the exact people are to help validate and make sure that they're in our systems and that we're able to, actively or proactively reach out to them. Of course, market dynamics, looking at the competitive landscape, the positioning, all those different things, some buying signals to see if they were, in alignment to us. challenges, opportunities. This one was specific to support logic. That is AI for customer signals in terms of determining churn, determining escalations, that type of thing. So alignment to our core challenge that we're trying to solve and have buyers for. Looking at the organization, which was always an interesting predictor for us to see, if they were improving headcount or if they're decreasing headcount, and the implications that we could help solve for, how they talked internally to drive a level of personalization, and then the understanding of the 10K analysis. We always talked about like best practice of using 10K analysis or even like earnings calls, but in reality, I did my MBA at Pepperdine. I've read a few of them, and it's great to get the high level, but there's no way that I'm able to go through on individual accounts and stay up to speed with that. So that's the in-depth component of it. And I just wanted to share this for comparison. So this was, Navigator out of the box. It did give us some good insights in terms of, if they're in market or if they're showing some intent. But as you kind of see the strategic priorities, invest in strategic growth areas. What does that even mean, right? So there is opportunities to use this plus the in-depth component of the analysis that we did to kind of start driving a better selling motion.
Yeah. Can I ask you, because I know in the last day or two in our Discord, signals came up a lot, and signals, buying signals and like trying to generate your own signals is a bit of chaos right now. And it to me it feels a lot like when the contact data vendors were coming up. It's like this vendor had this stuff, this vendor had this stuff, and you sort of put together the Venn diagram that gave you the greatest overall coverage, even if that meant you were buying 3 to 4 vendors. And I feel like this information is similar. There's some you can generate yourself. There's maybe some we're getting from others. Are you guys leveraging other signal vendors, either when you were at SportLogic or even now at UpGuard?
At Support Logic, we first started going into the intent component. I won't name names in terms of the vendors that we're
Okay.
looking at, but we found that, and I still continue to find that in this day, is that the company level signals just aren't strong enough to indicate buying. And this is looking at, who's visiting your website. Oftentimes it was noisy. We were, seeing, when we dig in deeper, it wasn't actually someone in our buying group. It was someone from sales trying to reach out and understand the account and do the same thing we were doing to sell into.
Yeah.
So there is some
Okay.
noise as we start going into like the common rooms, the POCUS, the individual cookies that we're collecting, and then also to like RB2B and all those different things. I'm
Hmm.
excited to really leverage that data because that's a stronger indication of engagement, and
Uh-huh.
we could do more with that versus let me just send a generic company play, right? User
Yeah.
gens too, right? Like understanding the signal that someone's moved, detecting that, if it's champion being all over that, and that's like a
Okay.
huge, easy ROI.
Cool. So you said you've tried those already, or you're experimenting with them?
Tried and experimenting with new ones,
Awesome.
right?
We may come
One
back to
thing,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Happy to talk through it.
Cool.
Big believer of experimentation. I usually try to dedicate a small percentage of budget to be able to do this to continue to innovate. And so, not only was this helping our sellers on the demand gen side and the marketing side, we wanted to get hyper personalized in terms of figuring out how we can better engage. And so I slapped a huge testing over this because
Mm.
it wasn't where it needed to be, but it was directional enough that it would work with some continued evolution of the prompts and continuing to experiment and drive it to an area. So you can see this is engagement ideas, and we're looking at how we can engage on account.
Hmm.
We're looking at engagement ideas by person and persona to be able to say, hey, could we connect with this? I recently did a LinkedIn post on leveraging disc profiles to try to drive that as well. So like the copywriter in me, and as I've advanced in copywriting me, there's no way I would send an email that says this, right? But that's again another what the LLM wasn't trained in terms of how we speak,
Hmm.
how we like to message product services, or even personalities, right? But definitely
Yeah.
potential for be to be there. And then the other one, this wasn't an experiment, this was real. And this was me wanting to explore N8N at the time to be able to get an understanding of how we might be able to use that because there was a huge amount of buzz around it. The flexibility, it goes beyond where I saw Zapier at the time, being able to not necessarily be linear, but also incorporate multiple objects. And so you can see the prompt that I used inside of N8N. But essentially what I did was the Zapier workflow kicked off. It pinged N8N to run. I was able to pass over the account ID in Salesforce. I pulled the opportunity data, ran some formatting on it to help clean it up, summarized it, and then put it back into Salesforce. Um,
I
where this,
definitely want to, sorry to interrupt. I want to
yeah,
linger a little bit more because we have a question in the chat from
sure.
Zachary. And I think for some folks who are just trying to figure this out, I might say take it one granular level deeper, which is walk us through maybe the literal, like how you set this up. Did you, everything started in N8N and then you did all the calls out from there? Like what did you need in terms of permissions
Yeah.
to set this stuff up? Walk us through some of
Um,
those nitty-gritty details.
So before I did anything, I connected with InfoSec in terms of like, hey, like, can I do this, right?
Mhm.
And luckily, we have a really strong. We at Support Logic, we had a strong InfoSec. At UpGuard, we have an amazing InfoSec. So in terms of support logic, I was the admin on a lot of these systems, so I could easily, without friction, as long
Okay.
as I got the okay to do this. And Salesforce is an easy one because N8N and Zapier have very strong integrations with it. You're just passing some variables. In terms of things like Perplexity, you definitely need to go into the API components, and now there's native integration with Perplexity and Zapier. At the time there wasn't, so I had to vibe code some of that. So all the
Okay.
different components of getting this up to speed was some learning experience. But it wasn't too complex. Did I kind of answer that component of integrations?
Okay.
Cool.
And
And then
really quickly, did you build those from within N8N? Like
uh
because you
the
mentioned
so
both, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so for at with N8N, the Salesforce was already there. So that was just there's a node in N8N, you open N8N and you say Salesforce, and then I just use the, get ops uh, you know, function that they already have pre-built. Uh,
Cool.
the the Open AI, I trained an assistant in OpenAI to be able to process this. And then the only other part of the workflow was formatting. And I vibe coded like a little code block that said, hey, clean this up, structure this, take out some of the metadata that we don't need, take out some of the JSON components that is overkill. So that type of stuff. And then push
That's
it right back.
awesome.
So this one was very easy. Happy to, if anyone has a
That's
follow-up
awesome.
in terms of building it in NAN, I can show you what I did. But and also YouTube,
And
just
Blake, I was just going to add, I think one thing I've been seeing also is now you can use um, Claude to directly connect up and or just build out the material for you. And so then you just, right, it can look at anything local on your file system or any context you give it. It builds out the stuff for N8N, and then you just give it to N8N.
right. I just actually did another LinkedIn post on that as well. And so I one Friday night, and this tells you how interested I am in the subject, where I'm constantly thinking about things on the weekend. I built an agent that builds agents. and I followed a YouTube video exactly. I took the exact N8N workflow online, and then I made some small little tweaks. I have a personal N8N server that I run. I do an AI nonprofit called Demand Unlocked to give workshops in terms of helping the local community. And so I have, access to be able to do that. And so right then and there, put it in, chatted in what I wanted to do. This for the use case was like an MQL inspection type of thing. And then it built it out. And then I actually delivered that to our marketing ops team. I lead marketing ops at UpGuard. And I said, hey, Dave, like, how is this? And he's like, wow, like that's actually pretty good. Took me 2.5 minutes,
That's
right?
amazing.
That's
That's
the
amazing.
that's
Yeah.
the ability.
Zach, any questions? Because I know you're hot in the middle of this. Like,
Coming off mute. I'm not that it's worth grabbing the whole group on. Some of this really comes down to I had not played with N8N before, and trying to figure out how to get data in and out of Salesforce is always slightly scary in that it's the place you
Yeah.
can actually break things as opposed
yeah.
to like the risk here is much higher than with other systems because read access to Salesforce is scary. And actually write
Yeah.
access to Salesforce is more scary.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
great point. Blake, one thing that came up the other day, I think it was yesterday, Pete, we were chatting about it. When you did this, did you do anything with Salesforce in terms of like sandboxing it first, or you did just read before
No.
write, or nothing like that? You weren't concerned about
Well,
the
so it
access.
comes with your level of comfortability. I think I started admin training for Salesforce 15 years ago, so I was comfortable with the objects.
Yeah.
I wasn't nervous in terms of writing back data because it was very clean. And I was controlling like the run analysis. Before that even was made, I was doing this in Google spreadsheets to kind of run the prompts and get going. So it was a very controlled environment. I wasn't concerned about it. I wasn't concerned about PPI or anything like that because of my talks with InfoSec, and we weren't really pulling anything that was, in these specific use cases that was PPI.
Sure.
Those types of things. Yeah, like, you have the internal checklist, and as long as you're comfortable with it, but it's what you're, I mean, I'm just writing data to a field. I'm not controlling or changing objects. I'm not, doing anything that would make me nervous.
Yep. Got it. Super
Cool.
helpful.
So I think I can go into, do you want me to go in? You help me decide. Do you want to see what this looks like in Zapier and how I structured it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. I think that'd be good. And anyone else, feel free to jump in if you're working on something like this or you have any feedback or questions on what he's showing.
cool. So Zapier is probably the easiest place to get started to experiment with these because it's very easy, no code, linear. Usually it's already inside your organization where you've gotten approvals to be able to use it. And so quite easy to get started. The main thing is you could see that the button clicks off a Zap. That's a webhook object. This is sending to N8N. So that's another webhook where I'm just pushing data for N8N to receive. And then that's a subset process that is going through and writing back independently to Salesforce. I wanted that because I didn't want anything in this workflow to fail to prevent that from coming in. You can see where I've broken up 3 different perplexity prompts to look at those individual areas. I did that on purpose because the context window that I wanted to provide, and then also the output in terms of the thoroughness of being able to collect that information and come back. So that goes in. This is where I vibe coded in terms of connecting to the SEC Gov. I used API ninjas for it. Relatively inexpensive. I think it was like maybe a cent or two to be able to do this. This was 6 months ago, and you can see that I had to do some workarounds to make this possible. In Zapier, there was a limitation of being able to store local data. And of course, call transcripts, 10K is quite intense. So I had to create a doc, access the doc, and you can see I'm now analyzing that doc with ChatGPT. This I don't think is necessary anymore, to be honest with you. I think that Perplexity is able to bring these certain data points in a very summarized way and a very easy way to augment the other prompts. So I'm experiment. If I was to do this again, I would quickly see if I can get what I need without going through this, and then that would significantly reduce the cost. And then now I'm going through, and you can see private here. So I had two different workflows. If it was public and private, just the way that Zapier works in terms of fluidness of the process, and then also controlling for errors. The two major errors was one, I ran too many companies through OpenAI, so I had to like throttle that. And then the second one was sometimes the API would fail into the sec.gov. So, wanted to control that and still be able to continue to run this. But now you can see where I'm analyzing the company from all those different data points coming in. I'm looking at the entry points, right? Separate prompt to do those testing areas I showed by persona, by person, excuse me, by persona. Generate campaign ideas. We didn't talk about this in here, but the next iteration was to group all of these together, these accounts, to say, hey, what are like lookalike campaigns that we can run on a personalized basis to these accounts? And then here's that update Salesforce record. So that's pretty much it in terms of being able to push it back in. I'm happy to talk through with some of the results. So time, you could see definitely a big factor. 45 minutes, 60 minutes, if we're lucky, right, on organizing that. This was a click of a button, and then in like 60 to 90 seconds later, it'd show up in Salesforce, which was pretty remarkable. One vendor that was doing a similar workflow that I got some inspiration from was going to charge us $12 per run of this, which we definitely didn't have that budget. And so I was able to simplify it to 83 cents. Now it's probably maybe 25 cents, like just with the models being cheaper and going through. And then also too, that's like all in with the API to SEC.gov. Like if it's a private company, half the cost right there.
Yeah.
Output quality was structured, always there. We were able to personalize things. Instead of that out of the box solution, we could really go in and dive in where we needed to. And then, also just aligning to the message as everyone was doing account research slightly different. Now we're able to have consistency.
Can I ask a bit? So, with this button available, like, what was the process for the reps adopting it? Was it like, hey, when you open your account, like, click on this once a week? Like, what was I mean, they had to click on it to run it, right? So, what was the way of keeping it fresh? Because I can imagine, like, if you have a rep, every single time they open it, they click on the button. It might not have much new information, and now we're racking up. It's not that much money, but times however many accounts, that can blow your budget. What was the best practice there that you guys established?
Found that the reps they just wanted to see if it was there. If it wasn't there, they would ask their SDR, why isn't it there? And then the SDR
Okay,
would run it. That
got
was
it.
the honest answer.
Okay, that's cool.
But the other component was I did have one AE compliment this, like, and say like, wow, like the 45 minutes to 60 minute, that was a direct quote from the AE saying like, yeah,
Yeah.
like when I go deep, and she was very thorough, when I go deep, it can get a rabbit hole, and you provided enough information to be able to do it. We had some trust issues in terms of, making sure that the LLMs were putting in the correct information, or that it was the most accurate information. But, same thing if you were doing it manually.
Yeah. How did you get over those trust issues? Because I think trust is the thing that comes up a lot, which is some teams just run them side by side. The reps get comfortable after a couple of iterations and we're done. What were you
Yeah,
guys doing?
transparency and communication. And if I saw it fail, because I would get alerts if it was failing, I would immediately say, "Hey, look, something changed. Let me do this again for you." So I jumped in, and because I didn't
Okay.
want them to immediately lose lack of trust. We all know, like, as soon as we don't trust one thing, and this was like intent data, as soon as we don't trust one small detail, we say, "No, unreliable," or even the
That's right.
databases, right? Oh, I
Yeah.
can't trust vendor X,
Yeah.
right? I wanted to
One bad phone number
one
and
bad phone
calls into
number, and
question everything.
I'm done, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so I wanted to jump on things and be proactive to drive this, because I saw it as a very big transformation for us to be able to get to the level of personalization and selling that we needed to do, because we had a complex sale.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Like, what about, sorry, Christina, did you have another follow
No, go
on?
ahead,
I was
please.
just going to ask about, the output you showed us was also somewhat dense. Were there any tools to help maybe process that or parse it to pick out what, yeah.
Yeah. 100% dense, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was the point, but
Right,
it's
that's the point. You want it all there, but now you have to almost decompress it.
yeah. So we built a custom GPT in the voice of our CEO, and then also in the voice of a couple of our personas. And we would literally just, "Hey, here's the analysis that I just run, copy paste." And then our SDRs would start kind of saying like, "Oh, well, what content would help support this?" Because that GPT was trained in terms of our webinars, in terms of case studies, in terms of content. So we use that as kind of like a baseline to be able to say like, "Okay, hey, like, what can I do more on this?" Now it's advanced, right? Like, there's some tools that are already, like, we use Pocus, right? I mentioned that Pocus now has the ability to do this analysis, where I don't think I would rebuild it for this specific reason. Um, and they're able to start connecting the dots in terms of best practices in our messaging to go outbound response, helping identify LinkedIn messaging for in-mails, and then also helping to think through call scripts to highlight relevant things. So like that process is now more fluid, I think, and now that that the vendors themselves are getting very comfortable with LLMs.
Yeah. I think, it's interesting what you mentioned too. Like you built this before, but now if a vendor comes along and is doing it and you didn't have to go through the hassle because you're the one who has to maintain it. We're seeing that as the real adoption for potential for vendors is that it's somebody else to maintain it, somebody else to keep it best of breed, somebody else to iterate on it. And like, so that's interesting. Is anyone else here using a POCUS or a common room? Not seeing it, seeing lots of no's. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I anticipate we're
Yeah,
going to have more tool sharing coming up.
yeah, but that's, I mean, the lessons that we learned over the last 15 years of MarTech was that too many point solutions, it falls down because the data was siloed. You couldn't share it. So we're going through big consolidation um, strategy in terms of like, what do we really need? And
Yeah.
what's going to support us, and where can we drop in terms of tools. That experimentation budget that I usually hold usually isn't for like a huge platform to be able to do it. But if there's ways that we can kind of get an idea of how something can be done, we can talk internally the build versus buy
Yeah.
trade-off. And at UpGuard, we're an N8N shop. And just in terms of our last leadership retreat, we all built end-to-end workflows to get leveled up as an organization to understand what's possible and to be able to start driving innovation internally because we don't necessarily need those point tools anymore.
Yeah, that's super cool. Who drove that? Was that from the
Uh,
top down?
from the top down.
Mm, that's very
Yeah.
cool. I think once you get over the learning curve, then the imagine the possibilities expands. That potential to imagine expands. So it's really interesting to just like bite the bullet and do it as a team, so that everybody's learning together in that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
We've
the
seen
other
teams do
component.
similar things with promptathons and their own versions of AI hackathons as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but that goes back into the integration conversation because now we have standard integrations to Gong, we have standard integrations to Google G Suite,
Hmm.
uh, we have standard integrations into some very specific tools that we don't necessarily need to rebuild ourselves, or we can easily get the efficiency of it.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. I'm curious for everyone else, like what, because we heard POCUS mentioned today, Common Room, you mentioned our B2B user gems, like for anyone else, like what's the latest and greatest tool you've tried that you've thought was interesting or that you want to try? Anyone? Nobody's trying anything? I find that hard to believe. Well, I gotta say, I
Well,
from our, oh, go ahead, Pete.
I was going to ask, like, or what are you already using, right?
Yeah,
Like, and what
it's true.
maybe from this, it's like I would, for me, Blake, I'm also a visual learner, so when I see something like this, I think, oh, this is a new tool. And when like, let's say you only ever knew a flathead screwdriver, and then all of a sudden you get the Phillips head, and now you can do all this other work, right? Like, so that's a very basic example, but to me, that's what it's about. It's, frame the tool in something that matters to the user, and then that often based on the kind of the communities that we're all in, right, the startup communities, once people have that tool, they're gonna push themselves really to start using it to just make their own life better, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I
Yeah.
got out of this is that if I was a startup, I would just be looking at all the projects that are, getting traction inside of companies, and probably build that, right? Like, because no one wants to deal with this stuff long term, right? You're just doing it because you can get such an advantage, but over time you'd really wish that there was a vendor for it.
The other thing is, the CRMs today are still contact centric, right? We're doing a lot of account centric motions. Um, how does that change in terms of the CRMs in the future of how we house our data and what we use? And then, what is the future of marketing automation? What is the future of sales automation enablement, right? And can that be under one platform to be able to build it? Like that's the next, that's the future Oracles or the future Salesforces. So I find that fascinating.
Very cool.
Pete,
It's
I
very
wish it
cool.
was as easy as going from Flathead to Phillips, man. That's the
I
same
know.
motion.
I was
That's the
just trying
exact
to use
same
it.
motion.
It's
It
a
So
sometimes
it's a
true.
good analogy.
feels like it's going from a flathead
So
screwdriver to using a telescope or something.
So here's my new move, right? Like, I don't know if anybody is doing this. There's sort of two ways I start learning a new tool. And the first way everybody has access to, it's on your desk already, is Chat GPT. And if you download the desktop app, this is where the magic happens, because then right from the desktop app, like let's say I'm trying to learn a new tool. I'm in the screen, I'm in my web browser or whatever. Right inside of ChatGPT is a take screenshot. So you just tell it that, pick the thing and just say, okay, walk me through step by step. I mean, I use that
Yeah.
all the time. And I cannot overemphasize how powerful it is, because you are basically getting a one-to-one tutor, right, to help
Yeah.
you do something. The other advanced one, which you should maybe go try is anybody that has a Google account, Gmail or Workspace or otherwise, you can go to Google's AI Studio. It's a developer platform, but you can use a ton of the advanced tools for absolutely free there. One of them is a streaming capability. And what it does is it launches essentially a window, not a window, sorry. It launches, you share a window and it's watching you live, and you can talk to the AI live, and anything you do, it will see what you're doing. And you're basically having a live discussion with a one-on-one tutor. It was so good. I actually played, I put my iPhone game into the iPhone. You know how you can see your iPhone on your Mac now? I did
Wait, you're
that. And then
using it to cheat at games, Pete?
yes,
What?
I had it. I literally, I wanted to see how the latency was. But anyway, my point is like, it's real time, right? It's seeing
Yeah,
what you're doing. And so
that's
again,
cool.
it's just, I use YouTube videos for a lot of stuff, but every once in a while you get into a case where it's very specific to you, and you're not going to
Yeah,
find a video about your data and this and that, but you can open up this AI studio and have it help you onboard that way. I just wanted to put that out
yeah,
there for anybody that's like saying, oh, I don't have the time to invest in all the learning. This will actually help you get up that curve much faster.
That's awesome.
yeah. And Blake, your point was a good one. You followed the YouTube videos you found like to the letter. You didn't go off
Yeah.
road, and they got
Yeah.
you there. Like, I think there's a lot of content bumping up, especially about things like using N8N and Make and intro to vibe coding. And I think there's a lot of those to get people started. It's just about finding the problem you're trying to solve and how to apply those things to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I use it in my personal life more than I'd like to admit. And just even like,
How do I
you
respond
know,
to this text from my wife in real time?
cannot
I just
confirm or
have it
deny
respond
I've
to
done
my
that.
wife. I don't even take that middle step, Anton.
It's a
But
bold
Man.
strategy, Cotton.
even writing birthday cards and like sometimes you get writer's block when it's so close, near and dear to your heart. But
It's
even
hard to
like,
write in Oahu. I agree.
yeah,
Yeah,
fixing
that's pretty cool.
sprinklers, like what's up with this? Or, pool
Yeah.
motors, or like, it's like, what is this? Or garbage compactors. We still have one.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing, though. So we only have about 10 minutes left. I wanted to maybe throw a question out to this group from the discussion topics, which I don't have a good handle on. So we'll see if anybody else does. So, what is the best way to define the output configuration in generating a spreadsheet type document using an agent? I mean, I usually ask it to give me a table, but I've only ever done that for things that were maybe like 4 columns at best. So I don't know if anyone else here, Pete or Blake, Anton, anybody, like,
Can you read
have you
that
played a
again?
lot with your,
I
yeah,
was,
trying to
yeah, I was
generate an
looking.
output that is a spreadsheet.
Oh,
So best way
wait,
to
from what?
define
From
the
what? Like
output conf
ChatGPT or? Oh,
yes,
yeah.
for an
Well,
agent, define the output configuration to generate a spreadsheet.
yeah. First of all, I gotta say, like, again, if you have a Google account or Workspace, you have access to Gemini. And if you're on a Workspace account, you probably have access to the Pro version of Gemini. And you just tell it, make it a spreadsheet, and then you hit a button and it'll actually open it in a Google Sheet. Like very easy. If you're in ChatGPT, just simply say, structure your output in a table format I can paste into Excel or into Google Sheet. That's it.
Yeah, that's what I did. I also asked it to create CSVs, but yeah, there was varying results. The only thing that I haven't gone through is like in-depth formulas to try to do that.
Mm,
So I had to go in and modify some of the things to do it. But that was a real big pain point for me too. It's like, all right, you made this analysis for me now, ship it, right? I want to see it and play with it.
Has anybody had
yes,
success on a corollary? Sorry, if there's more to talk
go
about,
ahead.
but on a
Go ahead.
corollary, the thing that I would love to then the next learning curve or the next thing I'm trying to flatten is how do I get I'm getting tremendous analysis, I'm getting good points. I'd love to hear how people are then taking that and then using, I mean, maybe this is because I work at a Fortune 100 company, but like the amount of internal evangelism that I have to do anything here. Like you're talking about plugging into Salesforce, I'm just like, yeah, that's just not going to happen here. It took 3 years for me to get Ample Market, which was a company that they acquired and a tool that they used from a company they acquired 3 years ago. I got it approved this week, right? Like, great. But how do I then turn my insights into something presentable? And I'd love to hear if there's things that people have that they're doing with their, whether it's, unfortunately, we don't use Google. We're an outreach shop, Microsoft, yay. But I think, how I'd love to hear how people are turning that into presentations, or how they're turning that into something as presentable as possible as a corollary to that. If not, I will keep.
No, I can tell you what I've done.
I think, Anton,
Yeah.
you just need to come back to the startup world.
Mandy, hello.
Hello,
Yes.
hello.
Well, you can take it up with my boss, our dear mutual friend.
Yeah, that's
But
what
I
happens
think,
when you go to the dark side.
yeah. Yeah, no comment there. But I'm happy to share on Discord, because we're a Discord family now. I'm happy to share on Discord what I am trying to do, but I'd love to hear, maybe this is another, I know there's 7 minutes left, but
This is great. Go ahead, Blake. You had some comments, and then I've
Yeah,
got some
so I
comments.
mean, essentially, like I'm just conversating with um depends like what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll do GPT versus Gemini, just depending on, what I've trained in terms of an agent for me to have the contextual awareness. But what I'll usually do is I'll start with outlines, and then if I'm doing a presentation, I will actually go through and just kind of help me define a talk track and all that stuff like that. Then I will figure out who my audience is, and then say like, hey, like this is for this audience. What would be most impactful? All that. So like I try to tailor it. There was something that I saw recently and I haven't explored yet, but a big challenge for me was creating the actual PowerPoint
100%.
or
That's what I'm referring to. Like
Yeah.
I'm on
yeah,
Canva, like effing around, or yeah. I just think there's,
Canva won't work.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not. Yeah,
I've tried it.
I brought it up.
I'll
Yeah.
I'll find out the name of it, because I actually saved, I think it was like the LinkedIn article on it, or I'll find it and
Is
I
it
can
so?
have
I know, yeah, a lot of folks have been testing and playing with Gamma and Beautiful AI. And I think the key for those is to have, there's really two things. One is to have a strong outline, like, so distilling your insights into an outline for slide building, like using ChatGPT to do that would probably be good. Like, take all these insights and structure it into a well thought out presentation outline, and then feeding the outline into those
Into
options to
people.
make it pretty. The second thing is it may not come back in the right colors and whatnot, but at least it shows you what the slides should look like. And that can be incredibly helpful to then just making them. Because I think a lot of it is figuring out how everything should look, and like the ordering, the narrative, the story, etc. And so I
Yeah,
think separating those two is how I've seen people speed that up.
the
One
upside of
Yeah.
one
each.
thing I've done is I'm a big fan of Claude. There's just something about the way it writes that's softer, and it has the ability for you to customize the voice. And then it has this feature called projects, which is similar to ChatGPT projects and like a Gemini gem. But here's what I do. I'll create, and I have a Claude project, and in the project I've put in the Scale Venture Partners branding guidelines, and I've written about the voice or this or that. Maybe it's my voice if I'm writing a presentation for one of our workshops or an article for the blog. So I do all that. And so that's there. It's just there for me. And so now when I create a new chat, it's using all of those documents. Furthermore, by the way, just sidebar here, one of the beautiful things about Claude is that you can add a Google Doc into the project. And then if the Google Doc gets updated, if you refresh the page, the browser, it'll pull in all the changes from the Google Doc without having to re-edit the project. Super powerful. because now any change you make to the Google Doc is all flowing in, so the project is always up to date, right? So then what I do is I'll whatever I'm working on, I'll have it build out that outline, and then at the end, once I have a really good outline that's at least a prototype, then I'll start to kick in. I'll say, okay, now let's, and I use the term mock up, and create new artifacts. That's what Claude makes, and mock up the slide. And so when it does it, it's already in the scale, look and feel, the brand, the colors, like all of that. And the guidelines, like, hey, no more than 3 bullet points, font sizes this big, all of that. And so now, like, is it ready for me to ship it? No. But holy cow, like, it is really good to test and say, is this even in the right flow? Right. And now I can go and
it's a cheat code, like for
cheat
sure.
code.
It's a shortcut. Yeah. That's super
Anyway,
cool.
we can do a demo on that. I'm happy to show that workflow sometimes. I mean, might be good to do some of those, Christine. I don't know how y'all feel about it, but like actually like work together on a project like that, right? Like it'd be kind of fun.
I think that'd be a super cool one to show folks. And I
Yeah.
think, I'm getting a lot of requests for it feels like folks are starting to dominate the primary use cases of research and like writing emails and even content. I mean, we can fine tune things like training it for voice, but I'm getting more folks that are like, how do I create the visuals, whether it be the images, the decks, the whatever it might be. So that's something that I've got on my list that I'm trying to find some folks who can help us with that. I think everyone I've talked to who I think is good at is like, well, I'm not an expert. And I'm like, oh, but you look like an expert to the rest of us. But I think it just goes to show the nascent nature of everyone's learning there. So I'm going to try and grab some folks to come and show us like how they have created consistency in the visuals process. That's one thing. But I would throw it out to everyone else here. What other kinds of things are you trying to solve for that you'd love us to find someone who can do?
Hey,
Love to hear your ideas. Yeah,
Christina,
Anita.
just on an extension of what you're saying, and this is not answering your question just yet,
It's okay.
but one thing I just read yesterday, and I haven't tried anything yet, is that Canva AI now integrates with Claude.
Yeah.
So you can actually ship it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
That
let's go
just
play with
happened.
that, guys.
There was a big update recently, and then that's cool. And I know, Anita, you asked about the image gen before, so I knew you've been looking at this one.
Pete, I gotta say it's all theory. I need to push my team.
Yeah.
We're a Gemini Pro house because we're a very technical company. So I'm with you on the studio. So.
Oh, but if you're that, then you have access to the image gen, the VO, and I mean, it is astounding how good it is. So you got a lot of tools already. And then go check out some of the experimental ones like Whisk from Google. Look it up. Google has so many experimental things out there, but Whisk is one of them, and it allows you to add a little more control.
Cool. I'm gonna try that. Thank you.
That's really neat. I think we need to do a couple to focus on this for sure.
We should just come out and have everybody do a show and tell. Use a different tool and post your artwork.
Oh, that's a cool idea. I mean, so for anyone in the Discord, I was playing with it today with a prompt on creating a headshot in LinkedIn, and I was like, took a quick selfie and put that in, and I was like, I personally don't think it looks like me, but I can see how it's like very close resemblance. And I think it's one of those things that we just all have to keep iterating on. I think people's faces are the hardest, especially a known person. But when we're thinking about things like branding and just trying to get like general colors and general like vibe of images like consistent, I think that there's a lot we can do there. So Zach, you had a question for future session. Oh, success of an AI SDR program.
Yeah,
That's been an interesting one. Go ahead.
know that there's plenty of people like Jason Lemkin who are swearing it's the future of the world, but it also, I think, is a little bit hype cycle on some of it, is one
Yeah.
of my suggestions. And the other was a workshop that's not as much on like, oh, look, you can make pretty pictures, but which of the creative tools for like designing good ads, for designing good one-pagers, for designing slides that actually use your corporate brand and template and isn't just a picture that maybe you then still have to work through creative design on, would be really helpful.
That is cool.
Also, this is a little more generic, sorry, but has anyone Like Perplexity's got Comet, their new browser. Anyone been using that to some cool effect? Because within Perplexity itself, now you can integrate the chat in the browser. That would be kind of cool to see what use cases people are doing with that.
Yeah, I think the browser thing is going to be interesting. Several of the LLMs are on that fast path to delivering browsers. I haven't played with them specifically yet, but I think that it's going to be it's going to
Right,
be
right.
start a whole nother evolution cycle.
Right, because we could also, and again, not to go off topic, but I think that using Perplexity with the Comet, I think we could
Yeah.
accelerate our learning loop on how AI might use AI SEO. If there could be something we could tease the thread on there, because I bet you we're going to make some connections we haven't even thought of there on AI SEO or whatever we call it, GEO. I don't even know the word.
Yeah, AEO, GEO. Yep.
Yeah.
I've got a line out to try and find folks that are iterating on that front too, because I think a lot of people have questions around what that new optimization is going to look like. That's a great one. Great one, Anita. Well, we are over time, so thanks everybody. I know a bunch of folks have already had to drop. Blake, thank you again for sharing your
Thank you.
workflow. It's incredible. And thanks to everyone else for joining.